If sound is an issue, we've got the stream team here. We can figure out how to make it a little bit louder. But, we were in this room last year with just about the same amount of people, and I think it worked out pretty well. We can make it a little bit louder if we need to. So did everybody have a nice evening last night after you left? All right. So, welcome to the first full day of Interptech. Again, my name is Brad Cray. I work for California State Parks. This is a partnership event. Let's see if we have those slides that are kind of going on here. Do I just press this, John? Pressing? Coming. All right. Hey, look at that. Hey, whoa.
They were great.
Stream team, what's going on back there? So let's start with their ineptitude. So John Idelson and his friends, John Idelson has been an advisor for the California State Parks Ports Distance Learning Program for over 15 years. We started our first distance learning program about 15 years ago with the help of John and his graduate students from CSU Monterey Bay. We built our first green screen studio in Santa Cruz for K-12 distance learning. And that's kind of how our relationship grew. But if you want to know anybody in ed tech or broadcasting or corporate sponsorship or lots of other things, see John, because he is an amazing person to know for lots of things that are technology related. And he brought with him a slew of people that work on live streaming events and 4K videography, like I mentioned last night. So I'm sure they'll get this fixed up. So everybody had a nice evening. Did you get down to breakfast okay? Mm-hmm. All right, and they had appropriate options for your dietary needs, I hope. Mm-hmm. Okay. So we'll have lunch today as well in the same location. I encourage you to sit with new and different people. Tomorrow morning, it's all about food, right? Because you're interpreters, right? Tomorrow morning, the breakfast will be at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. So it's lighter fare. It's all we could do, right? It's like bagels, pastries, and stuff. So if you need like your sausage gravy or whatever it is, find that somewhere before 7:30. Because we're going to leave tomorrow at 7:30 a.m. promptly. I think we're going to be leaving from the corner where Kiln Room was. We have a giant bus that can take 60 of us or so. So I'm going to suggest that all the NAI members get in that bus first, because we'll stick the state park people in the crappy vans behind you, okay? Yeah, that's how we roll. There's a sack lunch that will come with us tomorrow. I think they just kind of parsed it out for maybe there's 40 NAI members. I think we got maybe 32 regular and 8 vegetarians. So I'd like to see a vegetarian fight if you need to do that. But so hopefully that'll work out for you. If not, we'll figure something else out. All right. So yeah, back to how this happens. So NAI is State Parks partner in this event, but it's also kind of an event with partnerships with people outside. So the people that you saw last night, Inadev, who helped sponsor part of it. Oh, no, well, I'm glad that one's coming up good, but is Ryan here? Good, all right, good. So NAI is our sponsor, Belkin Education. We've got some great giveaways from Belkin Education. Inadev sponsored the event last night. They're not here, but I want to thank them as well. I hope you got to see some of what they're doing. They're going to be presenting a little bit later as well. And Onsell and Monica from Onsell is here. We worked with them last year on some stuff as well. So they all helped. But if you've ever put together a workshop like this, you know that it's difficult to get people and companies and times and budgets and stuff like that all put together. So what you see and who is here to present and what they're here to present to you is a culmination of all of that. So let's see, what else do we have here? Yeah, so I wanted to just kind of run through the schedule of what we're going to be doing. Is everybody using the online sched? Is anybody not using the online sched and we need to get you a paper kind of thing? Ooh, that's good. All right, so the sched online. We've got a great opening keynote, and I'll talk a little bit more about Colleen at the end. But after the keynote today, the three groups that were there last night, which was Discovery Agents, Inadev, and OnSell, will all have a session. And that's about an hour and 15 minutes or an hour and a half long. And they, so you get to choose one, right? But hopefully you got to engage with all of them last night. You get to kind of spotlight what, you know, which one you think you want to do. And those people will be here probably at least through lunch. Chris from Discovery Agents will be here for the whole time. So, you know, just because you didn't get to see their presentation, there's an opportunity to engage with them afterwards. As I said, at 12 o'clock, we're going to have lunch. Everybody can walk back down to Crocker. Make sure you get out and see the beach as well. In the afternoon, we've got another concurrent session that focuses on distance learning. And so we have California State Parks, the Ports program, which is the program that I work on, and my staff is here. And we'll kind of present to you what we've been doing for over 15 years to deliver K-12 distance learning into schools, predominantly in California, but now globally, thanks to some other tools. Microsoft Education, Skype in the Classroom, Kelly Anderson is here. They've really changed Skype for K-12, and it's really taking off. So if you think your organization is going to get into the distance learning game, you might want to talk to Kelly. And then a totally different take on distance learning is virtual photo walks. We connected with John Butterill, who's a videographer out of Canada, who connects people, disabled people, who don't leave their house, don't leave a hospital, to take them places all over the world. And so if you're interested in true ADA access to something using technology, you might want to connect with John. And Erin's going to help moderate that session because she works with John quite closely. Now, if you want to see all three of them, then we're going to have a panel discussion afterwards. So then again, you get to engage with the people that you didn't get to hear from. And people who have worked on all of those programs are in this room right now. Anybody using story maps? All right, one hand, cool. So Esri's going to be here. They're a company. There's a person from Esri that's going to come talk about story maps. Another great interpretive media tool. I think that's kind of an emerging technology. Can be used in exhibits, can be used online, and again, uses GIS data, high-res, super great photos, and imagery as an interpretive tool. You are the interpreters, you create the content, they've got the images, win-win. The state park people have dinner tonight because that's the way our training program works, so I hope that you guys all have good dinner plans. If you need recommendations, or if you want a dinner ticket, we might have a couple of extra ones. I don't know. But if you want to purchase a dinner ticket from Asilomar, it's like $38, and I don't know if that's worth it, to be honest with you.
Really delicious.
I don't know if it's good stuff, but you know, $38 might be better spent somewhere else. But we will reconvene at 7 o'clock here for an optional session if you like. We're going to be doing a live dive from the Reef Aquarium in Townsville, Australia. They do a distance learning program that's gangbusters. It's actually underwater. So we're going to do a live dive from their aquarium. And so come back. We'll have some desserts, some after dinner drinks, and some other stuff as well. So that's day one. Tomorrow, as I mentioned, Monterey Bay Aquarium takeover. We're going to meet. I'll find out definitely where we're meeting by the end of the day. But, you know, bring your stuff with you, bring your camera. We'll have your lunch for you. We'll have the breakfast there. We'll talk about their social media stuff, exhibits. We're going to talk about K-12 education, and they have a brand new 21st century classroom and some of the stuff they're doing with that. And then, of course, visitor services and face-to-face interpretation as well. So they've been really helpful for getting a nice day there. Tomorrow in the afternoon, you won't miss anything. We're going to repeat a session. It's twice. Those viewers that you got in your bag last night, bring those with you tomorrow because you're going to create your own 360 content. And so that's what you do with 360 content is you stick it in those VR viewers and it becomes a VR experience, basically. And then we've got another project from a researcher at the University of Oregon, and he's got some VR stuff, some 360 stuff, some Google Expedition stuff, and again, some high-level satellite imagery, story maps kind of thing. In the evening, again, another optional session are the people that you see here. We can ask them why the screen keeps doing that, and then go from there.
I don't think that's funny.
I know, they're pros, man. They're pros. Thursday morning, we've got breakfast again for you down at Crocker Hall. I told you, it's all about the food, right? And then in the morning, we've got Drew Minnock from a company called Daiquiri, and they're one of the leading AR, VR producers. And he's their education and outreach person. So they actually have an education branch in their company. And so he's responsible for that. He was here last year, and he'll do some AR, which is augmented reality and virtual reality stuff for you. And then at the very end, we're going to lock it up, and he's in the room right now with Brian Osland from Navigation North, which works with the Smithsonian and their digital collection to create the Digital Learning Lab. Everybody heard of Open Education Resources? Okay, familiar with that? Good, well, if you're not, you're gonna be. See online that the Met put out, 900,000 images for use by, that kind of stuff. The Smithsonian's done it on a larger scale with millions of resources, and State Parks is working with them to actually even expand that wider to maybe reach our resources into the Smithsonian's collection. And so we wanted to kind of highlight that and have you thinking about maybe how you could do that as well. That's it. That's the schedule. On the online sched, each session has a feedback form. So please, for our planning purposes, go into that session and fill out the feedback form after each session. That way we know what you guys liked and what you didn't. So let's see. Any questions so far? Are you all in the right place? There is a quilting workshop going on too, so just making sure.
That's the oath of silence group, right? Remember that from a couple years ago?
There's the silent retreat that comes here, and they don't talk, so it's kind of weird to be in the dining hall with 5 tables that don't talk and like a bunch of interpreters. All right, so, and then just a bit of housekeeping in here. So you're at the Mott Training Center. It's on Asilomar State Park and Conference Ground, so we're part of that. Lots of other trainings happen here, our law enforcement, our resource management, maintenance, all the stuff that happens for California State Parks happens here. So part of that is we've got coffee around the corner, which is very important, obviously. The bathrooms are behind you. There's a water fill station, so I hope you brought your water bottles. You can bring those and fill up as well. And then I think you found your way down to Crocker. And so if you need anything, or you're uncomfortable, or you want us to open the windows, or whatever, find myself, or Jen, or Ben, or anybody that works for California State Parks, because they've probably been here before and know how things are happening. So, all right.
Hey, Brad?
Yes,
What's the Wi-Fi password?
it's right over here.
Ah, thank you.
All right. So, any questions, really, or comments? Can everybody still hear me? I lost my voice 2 months ago, and I never got it back. And I do talk a lot, I'll tell you that. But I tried not to talk over the last 2 months, and not working for me. So I apologize. That's what I need. I need recommendations.
Wow.
Who's it? Sorry, let's see. So I wanted to say this is kind of an image of, we don't get to everything, right, in this. And again, it's like, who's available to come on the budget that we have and not doing other workshops and wants to come to Monterey, which is a big plus if you're ever putting a workshop together. But like something that we didn't cover is like memes, man. We gotta, wouldn't it be great to have like a meme off and people do like memes and stuff like that? And the other thing we didn't cover is we don't cover like digital security and how things stay online forever. We understand you have restrictions, and you may not be able to do distance learning using Skype at NPS, but there might be a way around it. So what I hope, what I hope you get out of this week is the process behind it, right? Okay, I got to speak the language of distance learning because I want to launch that and I need to know where to be careful. I want to do live streaming. I want to do 360 photos, but I want to make sure that it's, compliant with our ADA rules online, stuff like that. We understand there's all those nuances that go along with that. So what's really important is the process. And, and they do say that things stay online forever. Oh, good, he's got the same shirt on. I was not, that's why I blurred your face out, man. Yeah.
No, you can't blur fame like that.
You can't blur fame. So when you put things online, be careful, folks, because they stay there for a long time.
So happy to see this.
I hope you tweet about it. All right, so we can go over to Colleen's opening slide. I'm going to introduce Colleen. And Paul. All right, and Paul, before we do that. Sorry, Colleen,
Oh, no.
Well, we got 5 minutes anyway. We got time. Yeah. And AI, of course, is a big part of this.
Thanks, Brad, for that gracious introduction. Brad, I'm hitting the keyboard up here too. I hope I didn't do anything. Brad called me in August of 2015. I think it was August.
Yep.
And said to me, he said, listen, I've got this idea for this event that California State Parks wants to do. We'd love to partner with NAI, and we want to do it in the spring. Do you think it's possible? And I said, I'm just a simple caveman graphic designer. I'm going to go talk to our events person. I'll get back to you. I went and I talked to our events person. She said, I think you're crazy. And so I came back to Brad and I said, she thinks we can do it. And so Brad said, great, let's do it. So we decided we were going to put this event on with Brad's considerable effort. Also, you guys see John Idelson working in the background over there. Brian Cahill, who is wearing his Santa beard today. These guys have put in an immense amount of time planning this event. NAI's role has been to help facilitate promoting it and facilitating registration and bringing people here. But certainly the effort that Brad and Brian and John have put in putting together this amazing program has really been amazing for me to watch and great to be a part of. Even just listening in on the conference calls that we have every month, that's been really gratifying for me as well. So I'm really glad to be representing NAI here for this week. Any of the California State Parks folks, if you're not members of NAI and you're interested, please do come talk to me. If you are interested in writing for NAI's Legacy magazine, I know we have some Legacy authors in the room already. If you're interested in writing for Legacy, please do come talk to me. So I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be part of this amazing environment here in Monterey and also in this room. It's a really great energy, and I'm thrilled to be a part of it, and I'm looking forward to Colleen's keynote. And I will hand it back off to Brad.
And I got one, of course, now that I had time to think about everything. So you just.
Oh, and you know what? Write your name on your water bottle. Because if you don't, I'm going to take it.
All right. So the last thing, we did this last year. Let's see here. We told you to tweet about your experience, and it looks like the last tweet that came through is from Chris Parsons. So you're going to get a book, Chris. There you go. All right, Chris gets a book. Now everybody's going to tweet, right? There you go. And the book is Social Media. There you go. All right. And let's see.
Yeah.
All right, and then the Twitter machine tells me the most influential tweet was from Fort Ross, CA, which I think is, all right. And can somebody get her a Belkin tablet? Did you get one last year? A tablet stage? All right, then you get the other book, the Twitter book. There you go. All right.
Yeah.
So please tweet your experiences, put it on Facebook. Maybe that's what we'll look at tomorrow. Hint, hint. I don't know, and see. We'll look for the hashtag. So, all right. Any questions from the group here? All right, for reals now we're going to get started. So I'm looking at a website that's called Know Your Own Bone. And that is Colleen Dilenschneider's website. That is how you pronounce your name, right?
You got it.
Okay, perfect. And Colleen is the Chief Market Engagement Officer for Impacts Research, which is a global leader in predictive market intelligence and related technologies. I'm not going to read it all, I promise. Colleen is also the author and publisher of a website, Know Your Own Bone, and a vlog too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, which I follow. I think I get it on Facebook. And is a resource for creative engagement for nonprofit and cultural organizations that has been prominently featured in many National Museum Association publications and other stuff. But I talked to Colleen about 6 months ago, and I said, I'm putting this thing together. And last year when I kind of gave these opening remarks, I said, you know what, we're not going to tell you why you should do digital interpretation or use technology. And I realized I was wrong. I realized I think we need a little bit of background because we all have to go back to a manager more than likely or an executive staff or a board member and say, let's make a decision to do something in the digital realm. And Colleen works with and is entrenched in all of that stuff, the data behind it, the why, and the how. So Colleen's going to kick us off. It's 9 o'clock exactly. This couldn't have gone any better. This is excellent. And Colleen's going to kick us off, and she's going to show and tell some wonderful stuff. We got this for you. We're going to try to do technology handover. So thank you for coming, Colleen. We're so happy that you're here.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Thanks. Woo-hoo. If I get over here, can you still see me? Am I good? Ooh, that's a bright light. Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Colleen Dilenschneider. I first want to start by saying thank you so much, of course, to everybody who made this possible, especially Paul and John, and a huge thank you to Brad. Brad called me up, and I think before he sent me an email, and I looked up Interptech, and I think before he even got the words out of his mouth, will you come? I was like, yes, I'm there. I think what you guys are doing is really important, really needed, and data would suggest that it's really critical for engaging audiences and particularly for educating and inspiring folks. So on that note, I want to start things out with a bad metaphor because I love bad metaphors and bad metaphors are the best metaphors. The bad metaphor that I'm going to use is let's pretend that your organizations are having a party. And everybody who's engaged with your organization is coming to that party. What you guys are doing, the important role that all of you guys in this room are playing, is you're creating rooms that solve problems, that help people engage with your organizations or with your entities. What I am going to talk about is what's happening in the hallway. What we need to know about to make sure that people want to go to all these incredible rooms that are solving great problems, like discovery agents and helping kids get active and on cell and ports and all of these great programs that are taking place. So again, what we know a lot about is what's happening in the hallway. And data suggest that not only do people want to engage with visitor serving entities and organizations online and in general, they already are, whether we're ready for them to do so or not. So on that note, let's move forward. Whoops. All right, that's me. I have to start with a cartoon and a selfie because we're about to talk about data. So I have to start on a fun note. Who am I? Brad gave a quick introduction. Who is this excited, nerdy millennial in front of you? I work for a predictive technology and market research company called Impacts Research and Development. We work in, again, predictive technology and market research for a whole bunch of different organizations. Some of our clients that are relevant to this are the Department of State, Monterey Bay Aquarium, Exploratorium. We've done a little bit of work with California State Parks. Impacts has, Wildlife Conservation Society, San Diego Zoo, Naples Botanical Gardens. Those are just an example of some of the organizations that we work with at Impacts. And at Impacts, what we are all about, and this sounds terrible, is solvency, right? How do we make sure that these organizations can continue to exist in order to execute their missions of educating and inspiring audiences? It sounds pretty boring, but it's actually pretty exciting and it's terribly necessary. The second thing that I do is I write a blog, a website called Know Your Own Bone. Every Wednesday, I take non-proprietary data, that is data that I have permission to share, that comes from the work that I do at Impacts, and I make it accessible for organizations. And what we're going to talk about is a bunch of data about how people want to engage with organizations and with entities. And really quick, before I get started, can I please get a show of hands for anybody who is related to, works with, or is directly or indirectly associated with either national or state parks? Any national? Oh, good. That's a lot of you. Awesome. Great. That sounds good. So where's this data that I'm about to show you coming from? Don't fall asleep yet. This is all important onboarding. And if you guys have any questions about any of this stuff, or you want to get into any of the mathy details, we can talk about it at the end. The data comes from two main places. The first is it comes from Impacts Research and Development. We are in market constantly monitoring 224 visitor serving organizations. And yes, that includes state parks. It also comes from some of the data that I often show comes from client organizations. So organizations that have been kind enough to let me know let me go ahead and share their information. The second place that it comes from is a thing called the National Awareness, Attitudes, and Usage Study. This is where almost all of the data that I share on my website comes from. It is a study, it's an ongoing study, which means it's constantly in market. This means that even as we speak, there are folks going ahead and collecting data on it, so it's continuously updated. And it was most recently updated courtesy of Stanford University and Google. The idea is kind of you put something into it, you fund it, especially if you're an entity that can do so. It goes ahead and it is considered to be the largest study of visitor serving perceptions in the United States, the largest ongoing study. And it was originally made possible around these parts by the David and Lucille Packard Foundation. That's how it started. And now I think the NAU is about 7 years old. It is full of a lot of data. And it takes a lot of computers to manage it all. But what it does is it gives us a really good sense of how people want to engage with organizations. It lets us dive into really nerdy things like behavioral economics and psychology and pricing psychology and how people make visitation decisions. So on that note, what I want to talk about is how important digital connectivity is in every single part of the visitor engagement cycle. It is important before people visit, it's important while people visit, and it's important after people visit. So in order to do that, the way that I'm going to go ahead and lay this out is by going through the visitor engagement cycle. So that means pretending that we are potential visitors. So how do we get somebody to visit our organization or to come to our park or to come to one of our parks? Well, in order to do that, we need to know what motivates the visitation decision in the first place. And what data suggests is that reputation, which is highlighted here, is a top 5 motivator for visitation. Now here, everybody wants to look at this one, because this is one, we're for everybody, and yes, organizations are for everybody. But here's where our bread is buttered, right here under high propensity visitors. High propensity visitors are people who have the demographic, psychographic, and behavioral attributes that indicate an increased likelihood to visit a zoo, aquarium, museum, park, botanic garden, ballet, theater, symphony, what have you. These are the people with whom our bread is buttered. These are the people who actually want to go. As much as we hate to admit it, not everybody in the world wakes up in the morning and when their friend says, hey, Sandy, do you want to go to a state park today? Not every Sandy is, jumping up and down screaming, yes, that's what I want to do. Let's do it right now. We want to believe that's the case, and that's our goal. That would be great. But the truth of the matter is that there are some people who are more likely to be visitors who are going to come to see us than other people. Again, we call those people high propensity visitors. For high propensity visitors, reputation is the second biggest motivator for visitation. It's second only to schedule. What does schedule mean? Schedule means simply Being open and available during the days and times that people actually want to come and visit you. This makes sense, right? Someone's at school, someone's at work, they can't come visit you. In Western Europe, I just put it here because it's funny, they have a little bit more free time. Reputation's number one. They can take a day off and go to the place that has the best reputation. Again, even for the US composite, it is a top 5 motivator for visitation. So then the next question you guys are asking in your heads very politely is, well, what goes into reputation? That's a really good question. According to the model of diffusion, 2 things go into reputation. The first, I'm going to get a little nerdy, ready? The first is called the coefficient of innovation. That's our p-value in the BAS model of diffusion. That's things that you pay to say about yourself. So that's these things here: paid media, advertising, broadcast, cable, radio, online cinema. If you did skywriting, if you write on, if you write on sidewalks, anything that you pay to say about yourself. That's our p-value. The second thing that goes into reputation is a thing called the coefficient of imitation. That's our q-value. That's things that other people say about you. That includes peer reviews, word of mouth, interpersonal communications, social media, and earned media. It's reviews from trusted sources. Now, in the world that we live in, since the beginning of time, we've always had both of these things. We've had people who say things about themselves and people who say things about other people that go into reputation. But what's interesting is that we live in such a digitally connected world that we can do these things even better than ever before. So how much do these things go into reputation? The answer is that the coefficient of imitation, what people say about you, is 12.85 times more important in driving your reputation than the things that you pay to say about yourself. Now this makes total and complete sense. And another bad metaphor, you guys are lucky, I love bad metaphors. Another terrible metaphor is I like to think about this a little bit like online dating, right? Let's say that you are on an online dating site and you see this person, they have this profile, they look great, they are so kind, they look totally stable, long walks on the beach, nothing to be alarmed about. You're really digging this person on this online dating site based on their profile. And then you Google them and you find out through the trusted source of the police blotter that they have gotten themselves into some trouble. Data suggests that now that's a very specific kind of example, but you trust what other people say about you 12.85 times more than what you pay to say about yourself. This makes perfect sense. It's one of the reasons why we have things like Rotten Tomatoes, why we have peer review sites like Yelp and TripAdvisor. It's one of the reasons why they're so popular. We increasingly live in a world where people want to be able to make their own decisions, and they want to decide what they trust and why, which makes walking our talk even more important than it's ever been. That means being interpreters, not only on-site, but off-site on social media is more important than it's ever been. So, all right, it sounds like social media is pretty important. Word of mouth has always been important. It sounds like these are important things. Well, are potential visitors even on the internet? And the answer to that question is like a raging and very fierce heck yes. They are. They definitely are. This is, okay, are likely visitors connected to the web? This is an index value, and we'll be going through a couple things with index value, so a little bit of math talk. Index value is a way of assigning proportionality around a mean. So our mean here is 100. Anything over 100 is considered more significant, obviously, than something that's less than 100. 100 is kind of the barrier of significance, we'll call it, if you will. And all 3 generations qualify as being super connected to the web. What that means is that they have access to the web at home, at work, and on a mobile device. Raise your hand if you are super connected. Yeah, nice. I think that's about everybody. It makes perfect sense. This is exactly true for likely visitors. We like to say, and we like to think, oh, millennials, they're the only ones using technology. Let's just use technology for them. But data suggests that's not the case. Although millennials really do love digital technology and they are super connected to the web, baby boomers, and actually we have data for traditionalists, and they are as well, increasingly. In fact, a lot of the things that we talk about when we talk about millennials are actually canaries in the coal mine for things that affect a broad range of things happening in cultural organizations. Being super connected is one of them. We like to say, oh, that's for young people. It's not. Young people do not own the internet. Everybody is connected in that way. So okay, great. They're connected to the web. What sources of information are folks using to come visit us? So I had seen, thanks to Brad who let me know that how to look up and kind of creepily look at what you guys were into and where you're from. I decided to cut the data. I cut the data in two ways. We have a US high propensity visitor. Yes, the acronym is HPV. I deal with that in my world every single day. In my world, it really is a high propensity visitor. But I do want to acknowledge that I understand that it stands for other things. And then I also cut the data for a recent park visitor. This is aggregated a park visitor to a national or a state park, not necessarily California, any state park or any national park. And what you can see is not surprising at all. Folks are really using these digital engagement platforms to learn information and or not to learn information, they're using them frequently to get information about anything. This is where they live. This is what they're doing. This is how these people who profile as high propensity visitors are getting their information. And you can see something pretty quickly, it's pretty astounding, is the importance of social media and mobile web. In the data that I'm going to show you, I do a lot of breaking up of mobile web and web. Mobile web and web are essentially the same thing, except one's on a mobile device and one isn't. What's interesting is that the platform that people are on affects how they perceive that platform, right? The medium's the message. So that's one of the reasons why you're seeing that cut out here. What I want to point out is that digital trends often reflect market trends. What that means is that the things that are happening in real life are often seen in things that are taking place online. Digital connectivity, digital engagement is engagement. That's a huge takeaway. And one thing that we're seeing in the digital world is if you take that look at that 100, here, remember, here's our index value is 100. Every single one that has an index value over 100 is a platform that talks with audiences. Every single one with index value below 100 is a platform that talks at audiences. And that underscores a really important trend with things that are happening in our connected world today. Not only is this just how social media works, this is increasingly how the market wants to operate. They want to be spoken with as opposed to be spoken at, because we have the capability now to do that. And it doesn't necessarily mean that things are different. People may have always preferred to be spoken with as opposed to at. However, we now have this incredible technology and thus this incredible responsibility to communicate with audiences instead of solely at audiences. Now, these next 4 slides that I'm going to show you are what I call ammo slides. These are slides that I am giving to you guys because they're very big data slides, with the sole purpose of you guys taking them back and using them any way you need to communicate the importance of what you guys are doing and the importance of being connected. This data is from the National Awareness, Attitudes, and Usage Study, and it also has an add-on to, it's derived from the NAAU, but it also has an add-on called the Media Consumption Study that we're doing also with several for-profit organizations. This is data that you're looking at is the same data that we show our for-profit clients. So this data is very important. What we're looking at first is different, you can see along the bottom, different communication channels. We're still before a visit, don't worry, we'll get on site eventually. But here we're looking at web, you guys know what the web is. Social media, WOM, that stands for word of mouth. That's me talking to you guys right now, it's you talking to each other. Email, mobile web is right here. Peer review web is sites like Yelp and TripAdvisor. Television, radio, newspaper, periodicals, and magazines, and direct mail. So those are the ones that we're looking at. And what we're looking at right now is reach. I'm going to look at them in terms of reach, trust, and amplification. I'll explain them as we go through. So if we're starting with reach via what channels do people acquire information? This is the same chart as the one that I just showed you, cut for high propensity visitors. So this one is the general market, because we often get folks in positions who say, you know what, high propensity visitors, that's where bread is buttered. But then there are people who say, but we are for everybody, and you are for everybody. So this is the data cut for everybody. And you can see here that mobile web, social media, and web really take the cake. Not really surprising. The second thing we want to look at is trust. How credible are these sources of information? This one is pretty interesting. What we have here is word of mouth is obviously a big one, and that's because you can decide how much you trust the person who's speaking. We all have that one friend who, when they say you have to go to this restaurant, it's the best restaurant ever, you are like, that sounds great, but you're thinking, no, that's a terrible idea. I will not go to that restaurant. That gives you the power to decide how much you trust that person's word of mouth endorsement. What we also, peer review web also makes sense. We live in a world where there's a lot of, people have aggregated reviews, but you also have the power to look at the 1 stars and decide how crazy those people are. Right? You know what I'm talking about? Have you all seen the websites where they have, you know, like, the 7 wonders of the world and like the 1-star TripAdvisor reviews that they get? Yep, exactly. So these are great because they let you decide, they let you qualify how much you trust those sources of information. What's interesting here in newspapers and magazines is something called the publication effect. We know that magazines and we assume that magazines and newspapers have a whole bunch of people, or at least one other person, that looks at it to decide if it's actually worthy of publication, if it's actually something that is trustworthy. So it's a little bit more vetted than other things. This data is actually good news because social's low. This means, and this is important to a lot of people, especially a lot of folks who run organizations, people know that there are crazy people on the internet. And sometimes that sounds so obvious, right? But sometimes we get so worried because, you know, this crazy person is posting. This data reaffirms people know that there are people on the internet that aren't always trustworthy, and they can, you know, kind of make their decisions. So it's really good to see. It's not really good to see, but it makes sense that social media is lower than the others. Next, let's talk about amplification. Amplification is, what is the sneeze factor? How easy is it to infect, folks with your message? I know it's disgusting, but it works. Now you won't forget it, right? How easy is it to infect folks with your message? And these make sense. Social media is the highest. It's made for sharing. That's what social media is. It's meant to be shared. Web's a little bit lower, but it's still easier than television. Why are these ones so low? Here's why these ones are so low. These are so low because once you take television, and you have to be in the right place at the right time to see television. In order to share television, you have to put it onto YouTube, right? So that's why these are right place, right time. The one that's really kind of interesting here is the little bump that comes with magazines and periodicals. And this is just a nerdy sidebar. The reason that little bump exists is because of dentist's office and doctor's offices. They have a little bit higher publication value, so people keep them on the coffee table longer. And that means that when their friends come over, they're more likely to see it, as opposed to things like direct mail. Nobody's like, check out my direct mail. Yeah, so it's pretty interesting. In email, you can go ahead and you can forward an email, peer review web. One thing I also want to note is that you're not, this is just for your own brains, and of course, and I'm going to go ahead and upload this deck so you have a copy of all of this. You don't have to frantically write everything down. You can take it and you can print it and you can go at it. But one thing that's it's just kind of a data thing. You're not looking at even increments. We have June 2011, June 2015, and June 2016. The reason for that is just a data thing. What you take is you take your baseline, and then you take the most recent, and then you do one data collection before that. So keep in mind that you are not looking at these at even increments. The ones that you really want to pay attention to are the red and the gray. I mean the blue is important too, but just keep in mind they're not even increments. That's important for understanding the data in some situations. And then the question becomes, all right, I've just shown you guys a lot of data, and actually you could do an entire presentation on the slides that I just showed you because there's so much that goes into them. But when you put them all together, and you put them together according to their weighted values, so how much the market has determined these things are important, here is the composite metric. So a composite metric is a metric that has a whole bunch of other metrics inside of it. These are the overall weighted values of each of these communication channels. And for folks who just have, and there's so many of us, folks who are really specialized in these, this is a really tough pill to swallow. But it's also a really exciting pill to swallow because it means that we can connect with people more in more real time and more authentically than we've ever been able to do before. The thing that pops out, of course, is how incredibly important social media is. Social media plays an incredible role in terms of people gathering information and sharing information with one another. Again, you can see here that channels that talk with audiences have higher index values than channels that talk at audiences. One thing you're noticing here, I don't know if you guys have been noticed, this has been like a little bit of trickery that's been happening in the last couple slides. Email's gone down in each of these. Why is that? Why has email gone down? It's because, and this goes right back to a lot of stuff you guys are talking today, we live in an increasingly connected world that demands personalization. That's what a lot of the stuff that that's why your digital learning initiatives are great. That's why we live in this world that is demanding personalization. And email is not yet keeping up with personalization. So think about it. Every time you guys log on to Facebook, the news things that you're seeing in your news feed are decided to be the things that are going to appeal to you most based on very smart computer algorithms, right? That learn from what you engage from. Whether we like it or not, everything is increasingly personalized for us. Like, how many of you guys have Googled, my arm hurts, and then got, advertisements for slings for the next 6 months, right? It happens to the best of us. My arm's fine. Yeah.
What about television? Is it going up? Or what is the trend there?
So television is actually going up. Actually, thank you for bringing that one up. Yes, actually, television does go up. And the reason for that is because television is one of these ones. The more traditional one, it's still not above 100, it's still less, but it's finding ways to go social. It's the media that like you guys know, watching television shows and use the hashtag. It's finding ways they've picked up on these trends, and some television folks are our clients. You pick up on these trends, and then you find ways to take what you're showing and make it more talk with instead of talk at, make it more, like communication. Thank you. That was a really good one. Any really quick, and we'll do questions at the end, but any real quick before I jump off of this? Questions? Yeah?
What's with the 3 data sets? June 11th, June 15th, June 16th, are we looking at a time progression here?
Yes, time progression. Thank you. Very good question. Yes, June 2011, June 2015, and data pulled for June 2016.
Oh, they're years, got it.
They're years. That is very important. Thank you so much for asking that question. Yeah.
I assume the small numbers are sample sizes. Which of these are statistically significant?
So they all are. So there's not sample sizes. These are in, so this data is pulled from the National Awareness, Attitudes, and Usage Study, which is a study of over 108,000 people. This is how they are using mail. This is how, not mail, this is how they're using different communication channels. They are put into index value as a way of standardizing what people are saying and assigning it value in proportionality to a mean. So 100 is kind of the more significant, and under 100 is a little bit like the less significant.
I'm talking about year from year, right?
Yeah?
So these aren't necessarily statistically significant year from year, right? Social media might be from 2011 to 2016, but not all of them are, even if you're using that as an index value.
No. So the numbers are index values of how strong the level of agreement is, the weighted value is. The sample size is 108,000 people.
Right.
I'm sorry, I'm misunderstanding.
I'm just asking statistical significance.
Yeah, so these are all significant, this big data. So it's all statistically significant. This is how much they're using it, not are they using it. So like what is their perception in terms of overall weighted value? So for instance, if we go back, this is how much amplification value you associate or you ascribe to direct mail. Does that make sense? As opposed to how many people used direct mail. Does that make sense a little bit? All right, okay, I'm gonna keep going, and then we'll go ahead and do more questions at the end because there's a lot of really good stuff here. Again, huge thank you to the person who asked about the timeline in the years. Apologies, that was a very good question. All right, so what about what percentage of people use these platforms before they come visit? What we know is in regard to their visit. So what we're looking at is, ooh, loading photos. Oh, that's so much prettier. Yeah. Yay! Perfect. So basically, the way of looking at this data is 76.4% of people look at the web before they look at the web in order to get information about their visit or about your organization before they come visit. Or 73.8% will check out mobile web to learn more about your organization or your entity before they come visit. 68% consult social media. That's a really high number. That number surprises a lot of folks that I show this data to. Because we don't assume necessarily that people are going to gather information about whether or not they want to visit from social media. But the reason that we do from our qualitative data is they want to figure out how much an organization walks their talk. And that's really important for all of you guys in this room because you're interpreters, you're digitally connected, technology-based interpreters. What people want to see is that the things that you're putting out aren't marketing messages. They get enough marketing messages. But what you're showing is your passion and your drive and why you do what you do and how well you walk your talk. And that's a superpower of social media, is that it allows you to show and not just tell people what you stand for and what you do. And in that way, social media is a pretty exciting and pretty awesome platform. So what about channel usage on site? Let's say that we're this visitor, we did a lot of onboarding, we learned a lot of data about what gets people to come. What happens when folks are on site? What do they use when they're actually there? And this is kind of interesting. This is I Google searched, state parks, like state park selfies, and all of this like wonderful beautifulness came up. So then I just screenshot it because it was too good not to share. over half of people who go to visitor serving organizations are using social media while they're there, in regard to the content or the organization they're visiting. This doesn't include people who, so mobile web, it's people who use mobile web to say Google something they were interested in. What this data does not include is somebody, or like, so mobile app. This doesn't include somebody going, being in a state park and then going on Open Table and making a dinner reservation. This is people who are, well, this would be for using an app related to the entity. But these are people who are going online and looking up things about what they're seeing and what they're doing, or they're sharing their experience on social media. And again, it's a really big deal. Over half of the people who are on site are using social media. Real quick question, raise your hand if this doesn't surprise you at all. Oh, good, I'm glad. All right, that is very good. But then the question becomes, so with these methods of communication, how do they affect visitor satisfaction? Visitor satisfaction, I'll talk about in a second. Visitor satisfaction is the ultimate goal. And so when we're looking at these sources of information, they only matter, right, insofar as they help us to educate and inspire audiences, or get them to come back and revisit us again so we can educate and inspire more audiences. And what we find is something pretty interesting. The winner here, and I'm just going to acknowledge it, and then I'm going to table it, because we're going to come back to it later. The winner here is word of mouth. It's people connecting to other people. We live in a digital world, but human contact matters. It still matters. And it probably will always matter. Who knows? For now, it definitely still matters. We're going to acknowledge this in a second, because this is really rich content for us to talk about in a moment. So we're just going to acknowledge word of mouth on site is a pretty awesome thing. But then I want to talk about mobile web and social media. People who used social media on site had higher satisfaction levels than people who didn't use social media on site. Here's what you guys are looking at. Where you're looking at on the right, the red is somebody who reported having used that information channel while they were visiting on site. What you're looking at on your right is a non-user, a person who did not reported not using that channel on site. And these are interesting. The people, again, people who use social media had a better experience. The question becomes, wait, and if you're data people, you're probably thinking, I hope you are, wait, did people have a better experience because they use social media? Or did people have a better experience because they use social media? Or did social media provide a better experience? Did I say that right?
Yes.
Nice. Thank you, guys. Yeah, feedback.
My question
Yes.
is, are those two differences, they're not very much different, are they significant?
They're definitely significant, yes, yes. So for this, one is significant. So moving up one full bounce is significant. So
From 68 to 69.
So 68, 69 is significant. Excellent question. Yes, so one full bounce is significant. So these are pretty big differences. And the answer to that question, which one inspires which, is we don't know. But the runner-up to that is doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If people are having a better experience because they're sharing on social media, we want them to share on social media. And if social media is giving them a better experience, well, we want them to do that too. Either one of these, for either one, this is an excellent thing. And the same is true for mobile web. Mobile web is great because it allows, just like social media, it allows people to personalize their experiences. It allows them to find ways to make those experiences relevant to them, to their identity, to who they are, and to what they're interested in. So why is satisfaction important? I said this a little bit in the beginning, but satisfaction is the goal. Satisfaction is the end-all be-all. If you have greater satisfaction rates, so again, I work with a lot of organizations that have imperative to be financially solvent. So we do a lot with admission pricing. And so I only touch and work on things that actually increase the sustainability of the organization. And satisfaction is the golden metric. Satisfaction increases, as you can see, intent to revisit. If you are an admission-based organization, it is based on satisfaction that you are able to increase your admission price. Higher satisfaction leads to greater levels and more likely word-of-mouth endorsement that cycles back into reputation, does the whole thing all over again. Satisfaction rates are the end-all, be-all goal. And the fact that, as we just discussed, social media and mobile web can do that is a really big deal. Again, we're going to go ahead and bounce back. We're still going to keep holding on to word of mouth because this all comes back to people. These have to do with people, and this has to do with people. We're going to bounce back for that in a second. But before we do, so this data, I just kind of put it up here as a, just illustrate the point, is how much, so it's a duration until anticipated return visit by overall satisfaction. Of course, it makes sense. The more satisfied you are, and the levels on the top are your level of satisfaction that you reported, the more likely you are to revisit. So what we've done so far is we've shown how important this engagement is in every part of the visitation cycle, right? We started as visitors, and we got information, and we had connection off-site. That increased our reputation. Increasing our reputation inspires a visit. Then you have on-site relevance, which is what you guys are doing. A lot of people, you guys are, that's a lot of the things that you guys are discussing here at this conference have to do with on-site relevance as well. Once you have on-site relevance and personalization, it increases satisfaction, and that leads to people telling others about it, which leads to connection off-site. They look you up on social media, increases your reputation. And this cycle, well, we call it the cycle of solvency, but that's like data lameness. We call it also the visitor engagement cycle. And digital engagement drives this. We can't do it today in today's connected world without digital technology, as we've seen. On-site relevance, which is a lot of the experiences that we're having that bring people together and bring people into the world around them, those can't happen without digital engagement. And digital engagement allows us to share our positive experiences and what we found most meaningful with other people. Digital engagement is important to every single aspect. And every single thing that you guys are talking about here, and I spent a lot of time getting down and dirty with your schedule, fits in somewhere, and sometimes in a lot of different places, on this cycle. Digital engagement trends reflect market trends. The top three are the biggest: personalization, social connectivity, and social mission. What do I mean by social mission? There is an idea, there has been, I don't know how much this exists for parks, so you guys will get to ground me. There's this idea that entertainment and education are at odds with each other, where they're somehow opposed to one another. But this could not, obviously you all know this because you're in this room, that could not possibly be further from the truth. Things that we do that are entertainment-based are really important, but they increasingly need to have what we call a so what, a why they are important, why they are meaningful. We're seeing trends that are real-time, authentic. These aren't just trends for digital engagement, they're trends that we're seeing in the world we live in today. Integrity, we're pretty interested in real news now, and alternative facts are a thing now. And in transparency, and these are trends, again, we're seeing in all kind of behaviors in the market, but they're also very much reflected in terms of what's happening in technology and digital connection, both on-site and off-site. So very quickly, what social media channels are people using? I'll allow you to appreciate. All right, I'm going to go through this part pretty quickly. The question, this is, what's relative social media timeshare? What you're looking at right now is a chart that quantifies how much time the market is using on each social media platform. There are some interesting things here, right? Every once in a while, there's like this big news that's like, everyone's getting off Facebook. Oh man, there's still a lot of people spending time on Facebook. One thing that's really pretty interesting is Snapchat, or Snap as they are called now. Yes, these are little bits of information that take place in 10 seconds or less. And yet, people spend more time on Snapchat than they do on Twitter. Right? This is just where people spend their time. But don't worry, we're going to look at a couple more metrics. Again, this is just how people are spending their time right now. But if we're thinking about social media timeshare, and this is important because this is, helps us decide where we want to spend our time, where we're going to engage folks. We also have to consider social media usage by platform. Where are there the most people, right? Where are we going to have the most likely to reach people? And again, social media, Facebook is huge. Facebook has so many users, and every once in a while, again, somebody comes out and is like, purple monkey face is the new place to go, or like this, whatever is the new place to go. And for a while they are, and that's great, but we needed to remember that where people meeting the market where they are is very, very important. The market is on Facebook. So what's the overall, in typical my form, what's the overall social media power of each platform? That is, thank you to whomever whistled, that is true. This is crossing timeshare by usage. And I want to do this just as a little overview of social media, just a very quick overview. When we talk about social media, it's been this way for a couple years, we think, it used to be that we were thinking about Facebook and Twitter. That's not true anymore. When we talk about social media, we're talking about Facebook and Instagram. I see some people nodding, like, yeah, that's what I mean when I say social media. What's interesting here is these things are important to watch. What's really important about this data is you don't necessarily need to be, you definitely don't need to be on all these platforms. You need to be on the one that works best for you. One big takeaway, or one or few, that work best for what you're trying to do. But Facebook should be one of them. Yay! Point made, yes? Okay, good. All right, great. But this doesn't necessarily mean, oh no, we're on Twitter, but we're not on Snapchat. Get rid of the Twitter. That's not what this means. This is a way of looking at what's going on in the market so that you can allocate your resources and your time appropriately. If you are doing something for Pinterest and it's taking away time that you could be spending engaging on Facebook, that's where this kind of information really comes into play. Let's go back to what increases satisfaction the most. All right, let's go back to this. I have a website. My website's called Know Your Own Bone, and it's really, so I have a couple of people who are in Impacts with me, and they're very kind about editing some Know Your Own Bone posts. And in almost every single post, they have to remove huge tangents that I go on about how important data just keeps coming back to two kinds of people in visitor serving organizations and entities that rule the show, that essentially make or break the entire experience. And that is frontline staff members and social media community managers, right? So much of the data comes back to how important on-site people are who engage with people in real life, and how important these people who engage with people not in real life, on digital platforms, on social media, are to increasing satisfaction and to getting people in the door. So let's go ahead and let's revisit word of mouth interpersonal. These are just folks who use these things, and what you mean by this is, this isn't qualified. If you ask somebody else so it's how you got your information while you were on site. If you just turned around and you asked a guard or you asked a ranger and you just said, hey, I have a question, or even if you asked somebody who was walking along next to you, that counts as interpersonal. What we have found is the single greatest way the single most reliable way to increase visitor satisfaction is to have intentional, personalized interactions between staff and volunteers and visitors. Face-to-face communication and connection matters. It really matters. But wait, guys, we're here to talk about digital. We're here to talk about, connecting with other people. Yes, that's true. That's definitely what we're doing. But the magic of word of mouth is that it connects people to people. And that's what the most successful people to people and people to their surroundings as well. And the most successful digital engagement platforms do the same thing. They take the magic that's in a face, or they try to take the magic of connectivity and apply it in another form that helps to solve a learning barrier, an education or inspiration barrier. Increasingly, we find that who people are with is more important than what they see when they visit an organization. This data, we call it with over what. This is a really hard pill to swallow for people like curators, right? With value of 303.2, spending time with friends and family is 2.5 times more important than what they went to see. It's who people are with that matters. And if you look at number 3, the only other one that's with an index value over 100, it's interacting with staff. 2 of the 3 best things about going to a visitor serving organization have to do with humans, right? More than content. So successful, technological advances are the things that can leverage, that can either bring people together or they can leverage connectivity between people. And so now you guys are thinking, well, wait, this looks like it's, it's an event for visitor serving organizations. I'd really like to see this for parks. Well, I got it. I got that. This is the data cut for recent visitors to state and or national parks. And you can see time with friends and family is 1.5 times even more important than being in nature, connecting with nature. And even time by myself is about with over what, because it's qualified by who you're with. You're with yourself, right? Yes? Truth. Truth. Yeah, so again, time with friends and family. We have a superpower, and it's a superpower we sometimes forget. Our superpower is, oh my gosh, we have so much information. We have so many opportunities to educate and inspire folks. Our biggest superpower is that we are facilitators of shared experiences. That's what we are. We are facilitators of shared experiences. We can want to be a lot of other things, and we are, but the market wants us to be and is using us as facilitators of shared experiences. And that is a truly powerful and inspiring thing to be. When we talk about digital technologies, we're not talking about social media sites or technology. I mean, of course we are. You guys all know that. That's why we're here. But one thing that everybody in this room knows is that we're not IT people, we're not social media people, we're not tech people. What we are is people who connect people to others and to the world around them. That's what we leverage technology to do. It makes our visitors better because they're more educated and inspired and they're more connected, but it also makes our organizations better. It decreases it decreases the time it takes for people to revisit. It increases our satisfaction. It allows us to increase our admission price if that's something that your organization is thinking about doing. And it increases the opportunity for word of mouth endorsements. What's good for the people who visit us is what's good for the solvency and for the long-term sustainability of our organizations, regardless of how you are funded. And so on that note, I want to say a special word of thanks to, so here are some of the organizations that contributed to the data that's here. So I'm proud to have a slide at the end that lists some of the organizations that funded some of the data that I have shared with you. So you can take a look at this. And then I really want to go ahead and give you guys this information. This is my personal email address. I'm gonna regret this because this is being live streamed on Facebook, Oh, whoops. I have a Gmail account that's on my website. You can contact me on that. It will take me a few weeks to get back to you, or you can contact me on this one and I'll see it tonight. This is where I, route people from the Gmail. My Gmail gets a lot of spam because there are a lot of really smart, this is actually very genius, directors of marketing that will just add me to email lists for their organizations on my Gmail account. So these are the ways to communicate with me. Again, email's probably the best. I'm on Twitter, I'm CDilly. Facebook, I have a Facebook page. Know Your Own Bone is the name of my website. I'm on LinkedIn, and again, as Brad mentioned in the beginning, it's still weird, and I've had it for over a year. I have a YouTube channel where I make little videos in 3 minutes or less, most of the time, that share kind of the data. Data informs, analyses of how people can engage visitors, and they're kind of just like quick, fast facts for cultural executives. So on that note, I think I only have like 10 minutes, but I would love to take some questions. Here's what we're gonna do. Please, if we don't get to your questions, please email me. Also, if there are any questions I can't answer, I'd like to say this ahead of time. If there are any questions I can't answer, if you ask me something and I say, I don't know, let me get back to you, what I will do is I will take this PowerPoint and I will post it onto the website. And I will also add slides that have answers to any questions that I need to look up. Okay? All right, go ahead. Yeah, you had your hand up first.
Come on, Jeff, let's get you a microphone.
Oh,
Yeah.
Raise your hand.
Raise your hand so I can find you. Okay.
You still can't find us. Colleen,
I got you next.
I posted this slide deck on there just because people were asking.
Nice. Perfect. Thank you. And I'll add new slides if need be. Yeah.
So with those 108,000 respondents, were they park visitors already?
No.
And also, what did the diversity look like with those?
Such good questions, yes. So the NAAU, let me go back to the NAAU. So the NAAU, for those 108,000, we have a nice website devoted to the NAAU. The NAAU is a constantly in-market survey, and it's the best way to describe it is it's kind of a choose your own adventure. So it is made up of people who have visited, and it's made up of people who have not visited. What happens is, here's how the NAAU works. We contact somebody, and we ask them a series of questions. Some of them are open-ended. Open-ended questions, we have a process called, ready guys, please don't fall asleep. We have a process called a lexical analysis, which means that, I'll say to you, where have you been? There are different questions for different people, but where did you go for your last vacation? How do you like to spend your leisure time? And then you just answer honestly. We don't say, do you want to go to A, the zoo, B, the aquarium, C, a state park. And then we say, all right, did you enjoy that? And we have this process, we use computers to make sense of that lexical analysis. And then the answer to the question triggers another question. So that's a long answer, and the short answer to your question is the data includes people who have visited and have not visited. So some of it is perceptional data, and some of it is experiential data. So for high propensity visitors, it's people who have the demographic, psychographic, and behavioral attributes to visit a visitor serving organization, but not necessarily every single one is a person who recently visited ballet in the last 6 months. Yeah. Does that answer the question? Yeah. All right, Frank.
You said you're going to post this on a website. What website?
I will let Brad, do you want to explain the website?
It's on the Sched. It's on the online schedule.
And it sounds like he's already posted it, which is good.
Posted it under your presentation session.
Yeah, so if you go to the little, I think it's orange, the little orange bar that says Keynote, and you click on me, then there's a place where it should show up. Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks for your presentation. That was really insightful. I just had a question I saw from the data family and friends are, it's about with and what.
With versus what.
So did you have any tangible recommendations beyond maybe posting pictures of families together in the park that can sort of entice them?
Such a good question. That's for that one, it would be, there's the opportunity there may be something more like create opportunities that get people involved in programs on site, that bring your mother and father and kids together, or bring friends together to do a mission. I don't know anything about discovery agents, but it looks really cool, and it looks like that could be something like what that's like. But opportunities on site too. A lot of times we see things like a really easy way to do this is creating really easy places where people like to take selfies. Encouraging people to do those there. And so, like you can have somebody like you can do cheesy, so I don't know how much this will work for different organizations, but we have seen some success with, things where people, can put their face in different things, or you encourage people to do X, Y, Z, where you have somebody take a picture and have that moment together where they have their faces in this silly thing and they look ridiculous. But kind of that data is helpful for creating programs that help facilitate shared experiences. In terms of communicating shared experiences on social media, that's something you definitely can and should do, but I don't have or know of any kind of like best practices like we did this and it really, I think just kind of showing, every day the walk and talk people are having these great experiences is a way to do it. Does that help answer your question? Awesome. Yeah.
When you're going back and saying, I visited, where did you go on vacation?
Yep.
I visited the state park.
Yes.
Is the data from that, then I use these sources to check it out before, like 6 months ago, I went to the state park and
Yep.
these were the sources that I
It
used.
triggers the question. Such a good question. Yeah, they trigger different questions. So you went to state park. So we also, yes. So
Both using what you used while you were there and memory of what inspired you to go at that point. And is that a
Yeah.
single selection?
no, there are
word
no
of mouth?
selections.
Okay.
So we say to people, so if that were to get what you're triggered, yes, we did this, and we needed more data on that question. It's all computer generated, so it cycles to the next, humans are doing it with other humans, but or on the internet. But it would cycle to another question. If you were to get, how did you hear about, how did you learn about, what did you, like when you were on site, what did you use? That would be something. And then they would say, so it's all lexical analysis. So we used a brochure, or we used social media on site. And then we'll say, okay, on a scale of 1 to 100, how much was your satisfaction? They'll say 76, and then that will go into that pile. Then there could be somebody else who says, did you use social media? No. All right, what was your overall satisfaction? 61 or whatever, and it goes into another thing.
Any event within the last
Yes,
year?
well, yes, we can cut the data.
We're not managing based on time, right? Like satisfaction at that point in time versus a year later.
You can, good question. We can siphon it out. So we can cut the data in a whole bunch of different ways. We could siphon out data. So people who came in the last 6 months, the data can be, we call it queried. The data can be queried in a lot of, jargon. The data can be queried in a lot of different ways. So we can cut it so people who use social media within the last 6 months at a state park. We can do that kind of thing. Does that help?
Yes.
Yeah. So there is some that is based on recall. And to answer your question, this would be aggregate. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Thanks for your presentation, it's really good.
I'm well interested in, a lot of times parks are really under pressure to bring diversity into that.
Yeah.
And so I know that the high propensity
visitors, you got it?
What are your thoughts on having like websites in Spanish, for example?
Oh, wow. We've seen a lot of really good success with those kind of things. I think it depends what audience you're trying to attract, but we have seen that having the ability for people to be able to engage in the way that they want to engage, meeting the market where they are, is really critical. So for certain, especially in California, we've seen real success. One of the clients we work with is the Monterey Bay Aquarium, and they're doing a lot of really great stuff in Spanish as well. And we've seen in the data, they're doing it because the data suggests that it's a good idea. So yeah, meeting the market where they are, always an awesome idea. Yeah.
Do you do any data collection or analysis on low propensity
visitors? Yes, we can do, yes. We have, a lot of that is in our composite market data, so that includes everyone. We can siphon out, so we can siphon out people who are low income, or people who are underserved in whatever you decide low income means. We can, siphon it out. And yes, we can cut it for people who are distinctly not likely to visit. But one thing about that is that is like a labor of true love, because it is so difficult to get somebody who has no interest in visiting to, it's very expensive to get somebody who does not want to put on shoes and walk around, you know, to do that. But that data can also be very valuable for creating effective affordable access programs for organizations that have paid admission. We use that kind of stuff a lot in order to figure out where those people are, what they want to see, and we can even tell who's kind of on the verge of becoming, you know, who's just not going to come, no matter how much free stuff we'll give you a whatever, just come through our doors. There are some people, time is more valuable than their money. They're just not interested in doing X, Y, Z. But we can siphon it out for different levels. Yeah, go ahead.
You had mentioned that 76% of people are visiting the web before they visit. And when you say the web, are you speaking of our websites or just Google searching Point Lobos State Park and seeing what comes up?
Great question, the second one. So not necessarily just using your website, but using any web-based platform that doesn't fall into the other categories like newspaper to get information about your organization. So yes, the second one. Good question. Do I have time for? I'm so excited. Okay.
You're going to stick around for the
Yes, I'm here for a little bit.
There you go.
Yeah.
I have a question about the responses to museum apps.
Yeah.
The positive response seemed rather low, but I know also a lot of museums don't have them yet, and a lot of parks don't have them yet. So was that reflecting people who used the app and only had 4% positive response, or does that reflect that people at parks, only 4% of them had access to apps?
Such a good question. Apps are a totally separate thing. Amazing question. Here's the answer. The answer is there are enough museums, visitors, not just museums, visitor-serving entities of any kind that already have mobile apps, and that we can collect very large-scale data on it. So the market has been saturated with apps that we can collect that data. The problem is that the apps that have been created have the general feeling, the response has been a general meh. The reason it's low is because those apps have been a general meh. I could talk about this for a long time, but essentially there was a little while where the cool thing was to have an app, but not really to figure out what problem that app was trying to solve. And as a result, we got a lot of people downloading apps that they never used, or they opened once and didn't use on site, and they were like, well, this stinks. Now mobile apps have the potential to be amazing, especially since we're thinking about them more strategically than we ever have before. But it's also an uphill battle, because now we have to beat the people who have already opened an app that was like a map. You know, or not like a map for state parks, because that could be different, but like a map for something for, like, you know, a museum that has a brochure and people would rather not get offline to do something that's totally available. It isn't a value add. So that's kind of an uphill battle. Basically, this is a long way of saying the apps that the market has used have not been significant in improving visitor satisfaction. That does not mean they won't be. That doesn't mean they can't be. That means that what the market has used has not been, heretofore, has not been very helpful. I see a lot of nodding, so yeah. All right.
We're going to wrap it up.
Thanks, guys.
That was so thought-provoking and great way to
Thank
get
you.
started.
Thanks.